Welcome to another episode of the Sales Manager Academy podcast. I'm your host, Omar. And as always, we talk about leadership. And today we're going to be talking about the effects of macroeconomics on leadership, on what that means for you as a leader. Right? We talked a little bit about it last night. Video's already up if you guys want to take a look at it. But the biggest thing is when it comes to the economy, when things are bad, uh, when you have consumerism, consumers, right, not spending as much, when you have companies having to, charge more and make less, because that's one of the things that happens. Obviously, we know the bullshit greed that's happened since COVID with a lot of companies claiming that, just the cost of goods has gone up, so they're gonna trade that off to us when it wasn't. And now that it's actually going to happen and the cost of goods is literally going to go up for them, they already know it was already bad for them to have to raise prices. And they don't get me wrong, a lot of these companies have enough margin where they can eat the cost. But then on the back end, what that means is that the investors aren't going to make as much money. If you guys don't know, as much as it sucks here in the US, it is law, right, that companies that are publicly traded um, have a vested interest in ensuring their investors come before the company and come before the good of the people, right, before the customers. So obviously, meaning that if they're not trying to make the stock better, essentially, right, that's what it would break down to. Um, So even though that they can keep sales the same and they still make less, it could be cause for worry for a lot of investors and could potentially mean lawsuits and whatnot, um, which is a different topic altogether. But I'm literally looking at the charts right now. Uh, Most of the major indices are down about 3%. The Nasdaq's almost 5%. Uh, Guys, this is not the best of territory to be in. Doesn't matter what sector of leadership you're in. You could be a professional. You could be, in a professional environment, professional services. You could be in services. You could be in retail. The fact of the matter is, it's going to affect the pockets of everybody. It doesn't matter if you have the funds to be able to spend. You may not want to spend or invest on things because you don't know what's around the corner, right? Um, this is I guess, another case of what you can call like I don't even want to say a Black Monday. Um, but this is, yeah, long term, will we be good? I mean, we should be. We should be. Uh, but as of the, near future, the foreseeable future, it's going to be pretty tough for a lot of people. Uh, for you and your leadership style, your method, uh, guess what, guys? You guys aren't going to have a lot of opportunities walking through the door. You're going to have a lot of people that aren't going to be wanting to go in to spend money, that are just browsing, um, just thinking about things, right? The people walking through your doors are going to need some kind of service. They're going to need some kind of assistance for sure. But the number of people walking through your door is going to decrease dramatically. So there's a lot of different things that you're going to have to do from ensuring your team is spending more time with the people walking through the door and really spending time uncovering needs because people aren't just going to come in, saying, I need this, I need that. Uh, and I get it. A lot of you guys think that you don't have a lot of order takers on your teams. Reality is you probably do. They're just really good at also uncovering some additional things, right? Uh, Superficially. Now we need to go from the superficial to we actually need to deep dive and ask more discovery questions. And a lot of that's going to go down to the basics because when shit hits the fan, what does your team do? They go back to what they know the most of, which is the basics, the foundations. The issue is as a leader, if you haven't done any training and development with your teams, what is their baseline? What does that look like? If you're not sure, that's an issue because that means you're telling yourself, if I don't know what my team's baseline performance level is like, I haven't been doing what I need to do to train and develop them. So I'm just throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks. And that's not the way to go about it. All right. Take it from Goku. You got to train. You got to train every day. And when you're not training, you're still training. But that's a part of it. You're gonna have to do a lot more coaching and development, more training and development to make sure that your team can perform at a higher level when things are worse, so that they can maintain their baseline. And when things get better, their baseline is only going to be better, right? You're going to give your teams a lot more opportunities. Like I stated before, right now, uh, as far as you being a leader, is not the time for you wanting to lose people. Because if you do lose people from your teams, it's going to be pretty tough to get those people replaced because the company is going to be less willing to want to bring somebody on board. They're going to want to see if you can transfer somebody from another location. They're going to do everything that they can to keep from having to hire people because nobody knows what's around the corner. Nobody knows if this is it or if there's going to be additional tariffs on top of that. Uh, Nobody knows. And that's the issue, that there isn't a sound foundation. Listen, people do business having an understanding of, things are going to be a certain way for a certain amount of time, at least for the foreseeable future, right? If you think of cell phones, you understand the concept of one, contracts, right? Whether you believe it or not, there are still contracts in the cell phone world. They're just not on the actual cell phones unless you have a business account. Um, Tablets, wearables, those typically still have some kind of like 2 or 3 year commitment. Um, and then the leases, right, that you have on your phones, um, that's still a form of contract. It's just not as it was before, right? Uh, but you have like an understanding of this is going to be it, for a foreseeable future, uh, and it's not going to change dramatically. Well, what happens when most companies don't know what the foreseeable future looks like? What happens when most consumers don't know what the foreseeable future looks like, right? Where you're not talking about just a 10% increase, you're talking about 10% plus additional tariffs on top of that, right? Um, and guys, everything that we carry is manufactured globally. There is no going back to just single country can do everything without feeling effects of anything else. We live in a global economy. It has been like that, and unfortunately, we won't be able to go backwards. Doesn't matter what your belief is, that's the truth of the matter is we're so ingrained with the rest of the world that anything that happens on the opposite side of the world will affect the other side of the world. It's just the way it is. Um, for a lot of y'all that, banked on tourism, hey, tariffs mean tourism is going to go down. It really does. Um, whether it's international tourism or whether it's local tourism, it just is. Um, but you got to understand where your team strengths are and where your team's weaknesses are. And it's not about focusing on the weaknesses and hoping that, I'm just going to weed out the weak. You don't have that kind of ability to do that. You might be thinking there's a lot of people that are, now looking for jobs, waiting to get hired. So I'll get great quality candidates because they're just going to be desperate. Um, First off, that's the wrong kind of mindset to have as a leader. Second, they're not going to stick around because they're going to, be able to tell that you're a bullshit leader if that's how you lead, if that's how your company exists, right? The other day, I remember seeing a post by somebody asking, what are some of the main things that you look at when you're switching companies? And what's funny is the one thing I didn't see on there that's a very big factor for a lot of people is the company's reputation. So if you've been in an industry long enough, you understand who some of the top players are. You also understand what their reputation is like. So, for instance, if you have a lot of like executive level positions that are constantly open for some of the bigger metropolitan areas where you shouldn't have that many positions open, everybody understands in that industry that that's a revolving door. So either you're really bad at hiring people, or the company is really bad at retaining people. And that's where you want to move away from. You don't want to have that reputation of, you know, bringing people on board because they're desperate for a job. They're not going to stick around because the moment something better pops up, they're in, or they're not going to stick around for the bullshit. They're just going to be, you know what? I'd rather do something else. Boom. I make a couple of dollars less an hour. I don't got to deal with the bullshit, right? Um, and that's the thing. I remember also seeing the video of, what was it? Some blue collar construction owner talking about how people didn't want to, do roofs at $18 an hour in today's economy. And don't get me wrong, I got family. We do, we have a lot of business in construction, a lot of family businesses in construction. I've done it myself. It's both. I will say this about working with your hands. It is both gratifying and bullshit at the same time. You all know if you all worked in construction, if you all worked, in manual labor, you understand what I mean. Um, there's something satisfying, gratifying about actually being able to see something that you've done yourself and helped be part of. Um, and it's done, you move on to the next project. But also the grueling nature of the work. It sucks. Um, and when there's other opportunities to be able to be in AC, not have to, work as hard uh, physically, right? Why not do it? Even if it's a couple of dollars less, why not do it? Or if it's about the same. Uh, but his mindset was that people should be grateful that I'm even hiring them at $18 an hour instead of looking at it and it's like, all right, I am making X amount of money. Can I afford to bring people in at a higher salary so I'll get better employees that want to stick around longer? Because happier employees that stick around longer generate more revenue and more business because my clients are going to be happier and are going to want to do more business with me or are going to offer up more referrals than before. See how that works? Unhappy employees or employees that haven't been trained properly end up becoming unhappy employees, aren't as productive, and don't generate as much revenue for an organization or a company as they could, right? What does that mean for them as employees? It means that they don't make as much money as they could. What does that fall back on? Does it fall back on the employee or on the leader? It falls back on the leader because the leader's not doing what they need to do to be able to bring people on board and get them to understand that my job as a leader is to make sure that you are taken care of. And my expectation is that you're going to be performing at, this level and you're going to be doing amazing because I want you to not only make as much money as possible, I want you to have a better lifestyle than you've had before. Uh, I want to make an impact on your life. And yes, as a leader, when you're saying that, you are completely being selfish because you want more as an individual for your employee. And sometimes those employees don't understand that because they've not had somebody who's helped them break those limited beliefs that keep them from being able to achieve their greatness. Okay. And that's your job as a leader. And right now, during these trying times that are going to be coming around the corner, unless this is some like late April Fool's joke, um, you're going to be seeing a lot of it, and your team is going to need that moral support from you. Um, right now is not a time to go trimming. Right now is a time to go back to the basics, focus on training and development. And that might mean that you as an individual will need, to do a little bit of self-development if your organization isn't offering anything in terms of professional development, right? If you guys want, I have obviously a plethora of books that, if you want, there's more books on my other shelf as well. Uh, and there's a lot of other options available too. Uh, but these are some that have helped me to not only break some of my own limited beliefs, right, but also assist others in helping break theirs and be able to see a different view, a different viewpoint. Um, and that's what it's going to come down to right now is, not being tunnel visioned as to the world is falling, the sky is falling, the world's falling apart. Right now, we're not turning into chicken noodles. Right now, we understand, right, that 2080 world that I've talked about. We understand the issue that's coming up at hand. which is going to be a decrease in foot traffic, a decrease in consumers wanting to part ways with their income. Uh, Less people, because as companies get hit with this and they try to fix their bottom line, I don't know why companies always do this, but they think the most immediate fix is by reducing cost, which translates to a reduction in force, right? Um, Firing people, which is ass backwards, because that's not how you end up reducing cost. Your people are what help you drive revenue and what keep driving efficiency, right? Because they can spot things that you wouldn't. Less people also means more fraud, means more theft, means more loss. Um, Take it from somebody who's seen it in big box retailers, in big corporations that have done reductions in forces and then realize, oh shit, we are losing more money than we thought we would. On paper, it looks good. In practice, it is probably the most horrendous thing imaginable. Not just for the economy, not just for the people that are part of the reduction in force, but also for the organization, for the company. As a shareholder, if you see your company that you're invested in doing a reduction in force, the first thing should always automatically be how much of the exec's salary could be cut so that we don't have to do a reduction in force and end up with a worse position down the road because we're not driving efficiency, we're driving lack of efficiency going future. So just something to think about. Um, but in all fairness, right now, you have to help drive that for your people and be essentially that guiding light, be, um, Geppetto um, to your people and let them know, hey, things are going to be okay. Um, and if you want, you can be Jiminy Cricket and be the conscience, right? But you're going to have to step in. You're going to have to do some training, some developing, not just for your people, but also for yourself, because it's going to suck, right? Because that means you potentially as a leader aren't going to be hitting your bonuses. Um, but here's the thing. Don't focus on yourself. Ensure that your people are hitting what they need to hit. Because if my people are making money, that means I'm always going to be taken care of. If my people are not making money and I'm making money, then I'm going to have an issue because I'm going to have a bunch of people leaving. And that means I'm not going to be making money. Uh, as a leader, you have, especially in sales, you have a vested interest in making sure that your teams perform. And being an absentee leader right now is not going to do you favors. You can afford to not have to do as much training and development once you have a baseline of your team trained and developed, and you have a system in place to continuously do training and development, right? Um, so that's kind of where we're at right now. Uh, I'm just in awe still of, the markets because if y'all think about where things have been for a while, like it's kind of crazy how much they've gone down in just the last few months. Um, and hearing what a lot of economists have talked about as far as, the effects is kind of this was the worst case imaginable that they could not have imagined would occur. Um, we already projected to be almost negative 4% GDP growth for the first quarter. Um, right. So who knows how far that's going to go going into the second quarter if this is not a joke. Because the first round goes into effect today, I believe, for automotive. Uh, and guys, I don't think you understand that it doesn't matter. There is no company in the US that 100% manufactures their vehicles here in the US. Um, there are multiple components that get brought in from different parts of the world because they have better systems in place for production and manufacturing. And because we've been doing global trade for decades now at this point, right? Almost a century, if you think about that. Getting close to a century, we've been doing global trade. Um, they've all set that up with the understanding that that's how we would continue to do business forward, moving forward, right? Um, so they have everything in line to make it as efficient as possible and then send it over here so it's cost effective for everybody. Um, and now things are kind of rug pulled, and this is kind of where we're at. Uh, so for your people, let them know it's not the end of the world. We're going to see some tough times ahead. It's not the end of the world. Uh, we just have to really focus in on training and development. If there's no foot traffic, it's not about being on the phone. I'm not saying you have to do training and development 24/7 when you're with your teams. But spending 15, 30 minutes, with each individual as a team, focusing on training and developing, uh, does go a long way because it's once again going back to Kaizen, right? The relentless pursuit of improvement, just 1% better every day than the day prior is going to increase and bring better results, better yields. And it'll also help your teams focus better and it'll help them to also look at things differently, which helps to create mental fortitude, right? And that's one of the biggest things that you're going to also help your team with during these trying times is helping your team develop that mental fortitude to be able to push through when things look bleak, when things don't look the best. Um, it's never the end of the world. There's always going to be a better day. Um, and it's just pushing forward and moving forward, right? As a leader, if you haven't focused on training and developing in the past, there's no better day than today to start. The only other better day was yesterday. It's just like planting a tree. Planting a tree would have been best 20 years ago. The next best day is today. Don't stop. Plant it, nurture it, take care of it, and watch it flourish and grow. It's going to take a little bit of time, but right now, that's where we're going to have a lot of. Um, and you'd be surprised, right? I've seen my salespeople go through training and development, and they were like bamboo. Um, if you guys don't know how bamboo grows, bamboo fucking grows crazy. It's not a tree. If you guys don't know, bamboo is like a grass. Um, but it grows once its roots are in, which is your training and development. It's impossible to remove, right? It's one of the craziest things. It's freaking impossible to remove because it grows so fast and it traverses its roots through a very large area. Uh, so don't ever plant bamboos at your house. You will regret it. Uh, but don't think that, training and developing your team is going to have to be this long, arduous or arduous journey that you're going to go through. It's going to be like months and years before you see any results. You'll be able to see results fairly quickly. I've said it before. I've seen results within 30, 45 days. Sometimes a little bit sooner than that. 30, 45 days has kind of been the average. Uh, where it's like markedly stark difference in results. And right now, that's what you're going to need to be able to get back to baseline once things, hit the fan. Uh, and your team will be happier for it because even though they're not going to have as many opportunities walking through the door, they're spending more time and they're still knocking out what they need to knock out. Um, and when things start to alleviate and get a little bit better, they're going to be knocking things out of the park and they're going to be in a much better position. And who knows, maybe they'll showcase their strengths by helping train and develop others as well with you, where they'll have more opportunities for growth within the organization in the form of leadership roles, if that's where they want to go. Okay. Uh, so I'll leave it at that. I'm still looking at the markets. As I mentioned, I do a little bit of day trading. I actually came out unscathed this morning, um, which was not the case when I first opened up. And I was like, oh, okay. Uh, but yeah, there's always going to be winning opportunities. And just knowing what that looks like, and being able to take it into effect, and knowing when to jump out, when to cut losses, and when to move forward. It's the same thing with your leadership, with training and development. Right now is one of those where if you haven't been doing training and development, you need to cut that loss, okay, and focus on training and development. And if you don't know where to start, take a look at the link at the bio, take a look at the description, and grab that free training template. There's more material I have available as well. A lot of my material I make available for free because I want people to be able to utilize it and actually get something out of it. Um, and go from there. And as always, guys, if you have any questions, feel free, reach out, send a DM, leave a comment. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are, and I'll catch you on the next one.